Welcome all to another session of Environmental Studies classes. In this session, we'll be looking into human population growth, resettlement, rehabilitation, as well as about disaster management. The learning objectives of this session is to understand about human population growth, its impact on environment, human health and welfare, as well as to understand about disaster management. After this session, you will get to know about human population growth, its impact on the environment and human health, as well as about resettlement and rehabilitation, and also about disaster management. So over to the session. Firstly, we'll be looking into population and environment. The growth of population is the basic interaction between man and his environment. So when we talk about human population and when we define population, it can be defined as a group of individuals of the same species living in the same area in a given time. Population density, it can be defined as the or expressed as the number of individual of population per unit area or per unit volume. The parameters affecting this population size is birth rate, death rate, immigration, and emigration. The birth rate or natality rate, it is the number of birth per 1,000 people in a population in a given year. And the death rate, it is the number of deaths per 1,000 people in a population in a given year. When we talk about immigration and emigration, immigration, it denotes the arrival of individuals from the neighboring population. Immigration, it denotes the dispersal of individuals from the original population to a new area. So what is population growth, or why is there a rapid increase in the population growth? That is what we are going to look into. So we can see that there is a rapid growth of global population for the past 100 years because of the result of increased birth rate and decreased death rate. If you look at it, the population has reached 4 billion within 45 years. Now we have almost crossed 6 billion and will reach about 10 billion by 2015 as per the World Bank calculation. So what do you think is the causes of this rapid population growth? That is what we are going to look into. So we can see, as I have told earlier, the main causes of this rapid population growth is due to the decreased death rate and increased birth rate, which has occurred because of the availability of antibiotics, immunization, increased food production, clean water, air, etc., which has decreased the famine-related deaths and infant mortality rate. So when there is an increase in the population, when there is a rapid increase in population, there will be problems or effects associated to the environment. So when we look in associated with the environment, the problems related to population growth will be increase in demand of food, natural resources, then inadequate housing and health services, loss of agricultural land, unemployment, environmental pollution, and so on. If you look specifically, as it is stated here, it leads to poverty. Infant mortality rate is one of the most tragic indicators of poverty. There are still 34 developing countries where more than 1 in 10 children die before she has reached the age of 5. This poverty, because of the rapid population, there will be rapid need of natural resources and food, which can lead to poverty. This population explosion can lead to environmental degradation. Population explosion causes over exploitation of the natural resources, so shortage of resources can occur, and there won't be anything left out for the future generation. Increase in population causes increase in diseases. Overcrowding of the cities lead to development of slums, and also leads to unemployment in people because there will be more competition. Lack of basic amenities like water supply and sanitation all will be affected due to the population explosion. So that is in association with environment and population. When we talk about population growth and human health and welfare, the crowded areas and infection go in hand. Human health is at a risk as the denser the population, it is easier for the airborne diseases to spread. The increase in population has led to issues like urban crowding and environmental changes that has resulted in emergence of many diseases. So that was about human health and welfare. Now let us look into resettlement rehabilitation of the project. So what is this resettlement and rehabilitation? Resettlement is nothing but the symbol relocation or the displacement of human population. And rehabilitation is the making or the system to work again by allowing the system to function naturally. So it includes replacing the lost economic assets, safeguard the employment, provide safe land for building, and so on. So when we talk about resettlement and rehabilitation, the issues associated with it is there will be displacement of tribals, which increases the poverty, then breakup of families, communal ownership of property, then vanishing social and cultural activities, loss of identity between the people. All these are the issues related to rehabilitation. So when a big project or a big multi buildings come into place, in order to provide area for those activities, the people staying in that particular area has to be rehabilitated or relocated. For this, the government has to give a sum of money so that they will have to resettle and relocate. Even though a sum of money is being assured or given to them, what the basic necessity will be affected for these individual when they move from one place to another place. So that is what we had discussed about the rehabilitation issues. So one case study that we'll be looking into is the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary case study. So the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary is located in Kerala. So when this sanctuary was sanctioned to be made, almost 53,472 tribals had to be displaced. Even though the government had promised them to give land, till 2003, only 843 families were provided with the land. Rest all were not given any land, and their lives were miserable. So the tribals, because of this, felt very miserable and betrayed, and felt that the official have used their powers to come into their territory and destroy their lifestyles. So this led to a violent encounters with the forest officials too. So this is one case study. Likewise, so many case studies are there wherein which you can look into how this resettlement and rehabilitation for of the people for in regards with certain mega projects has affected the lives and lifestyle of those people. So in general, we can say that when there is a rehabilitation in regards with the project, it leads to that population's landlessness, joblessness, marginalization, health risk, loss of access to common resources, as well as social disarticulation. So this is what we have to study in regards with population growth, its impact on environment, human health, as well as about resettlement and rehabilitation. Next, we'll be looking into disaster management. So, as it is stated here, a disaster may take place in many shapes and forms. Before that, a disaster can be referred to as a sudden, serious disruption of normal functioning of the society involving large damage to life, property, and environment beyond its ability to cope with its own resources. As it is stated here, some disasters can be natural resources and some can be man-made causes. The man-made. So some disaster can also be a combination of this natural and man-made. So these type of disaster are called complex emergencies. So in regards with the disaster management, it involves a strategical organizing of resources to lessen the harm that the disaster causes. It involves a systematic approach to manage the responsibilities of the disaster prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. So these are the four phases of disaster management, that is mitigation, preparation, response, and recovery. So when we talk about mitigation, it includes any activities that can prevent or reduce the chances of occurrence of an emergency or reduce the damaging effects of unavoidable emergencies. Mitigation activities take place before and after emergencies. This can be done by revising zoning, land use management, etc. When we talk about preparedness, the other phase of disaster management, it includes plans or preparation for disaster and to help response and rescue operation. Evacuation plans and stocking food, water are both example of preparedness. Preparedness activities takes place before an emergency occurs. When we talk about response, it includes action which are taken to save lives and prevent further property damage. Response is putting your preparedness plan into action. Seeking shelter from a tornado or turning off the gas valves before an earthquake are both response activities. Response activities takes place during an emergency. The last phase we can say of disaster management is the recovery phase. It includes action need to be taken to return to a normal or an even safer situation following an emergency. And one should also consider things which would mitigate the effects of future disaster. Recovery includes getting financial assistance to help pay for the repairs. Recovery activities take place after a disaster. So, the National Disaster Management, that is NDMA, is an agency of the Ministry of the Home Affairs and is responsible for framing policies, laying down guidelines, and coordinating with the state disaster management authorities, that is SDMA, to ensure a holistic and distributed approach to the disaster management. The NDMA was established through the Disaster Management Act enacted by the Government of India in May 30, 2005. The Prime Minister is the ex officio chairperson of the NDMA. Now let us look into flood and the disaster management associated with it. So flood occurs when the land is usually dry, is submerged by a large amount of water. Sudden submergence or submergence of the land area with water is called flood. The occurrence of flood can be due to both natural and human cause. So these are some of the methods in which we can practice controlling flood, which includes to retain planting vegetation, to retain extra water, terracing hillsides to slow down the downhill, and construction of floodways. That is, floodways is nothing but man-made channels to divert the flood water. Other techniques include construction of levees, dikes, dams, reservoirs, or retention of ponds to hold extra water during the times of flooding. Earthquake. An earthquake is also known as quake, tremor, or trembler. It is usually the shaking of the Earth's surface of the Earth with the sudden release of energy in the form of seismic waves on the surface of the Earth. When earthquake occurs beneath the sea, it causes tsunami. The study of earthquake is called seismology, and the instrument used to measure the seismic waves is called as seismometer or seismograph. The magnitude of earthquake is measured by Richter scale and the intensity by the Mercalli scale. So the management and the mitigation method includes, as we know, earthquake cannot be stopped or predicted before. So but even then there are certain management or mitigation method which we can follow to minimize the effect of the earthquake. Construction of buildings which can tolerate earthquake. This can be done by keeping weak spots to absorb vibration, to keep pads or floors beneath the building, wooden houses to be preferred in earthquake prone areas. And the others include soil testing should be done so that the stability of the building is assured, so that we can reduce the damage of that particular area in association with the destruction of the building. Then seismic retrofitting is the modification of the existing structures to make them more resistant to seismic activity, that is the earthquake or soil failure due to earthquake. Preparedness and safe building construction can reduce extent of damage and loss. Establishment of GPS station in earthquake prone regions to assess future crust movements. And also we need to be more aware about the precautionary measures taken against the earthquake. When talking next is landslide. Landslide or landslip is primarily a combination of several geological processes that includes Earth's movements like extensive slope failure, rock falling, and debris flow under the action of gravity. Landslide occur when the gravitational and other types of shear stresses within a slope exceeds the shear strength of the material that forms the slope. So the management and mitigation method when a landslide takes place includes afforestation, wire stone blocks, retaining wall, landslide hazard, zonation mapping. Well, afforestation, it is nothing but it consolidate planting more trees. It consolidate the slope, thus by checking the stability. Degraded areas should be afforested and existing patches should be preserved. And talking about the wired stone blocks, stone ridge is trapped with the wire mesh to protect against the landslides. Retaining wall, construction of concrete retaining walls to prevent the slippage from slope. And landslide hazard zonation mapping includes the zonation mapping will help in preventing the settlement of hazard prone area, and also develops and continues updating the inventory of landslide indices affecting a country. And also the other mitigation associated with the landslides are the surface drainage, draining of surface and subsurface rivers to allow smooth flow of the water. Landslide warning techniques, sensors which have been developed in the recent years can be used for the landslide warning and detection, so that people can evacuate from that area, so that we can minimize the destruction in associated with the life and property. And management of catchment, excess water in the catchment area should be stored to reduce the effects of flash flood. This will also recharge the groundwater level in areas prone to landslides in India. Public awareness, the people or the society must be made aware or vigilant about the impacts of the landslide and how we can reduce the impacts of the landslide. Next is cyclone. Well, cyclone refers to any spinning storm that rotates around a low pressure center. The low pressure center is also referred to as the eye of the storm. I hope you all know it. That is accompanied by powerful winds blowing anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. They are known by different names in different countries. The few names which I would like to suggest is the typhoon in the northwest Pacific Ocean, hurricanes in the North Atlantic Ocean and northeast and South Pacific Ocean, tropical cyclones in the Southwest Pacific Ocean, as well as Southwest Indian Ocean. So these are the name given to cyclones in different areas. So the management and the mitigation methods in association with the cyclone includes coastal plantation, which include the forest act as a buffer zone against cyclones. Cyclones travel unchecked in the absence of the forest. The degraded forest land must be planted, as plantation will act as a wall. We can say act as a wall to break the cyclones and water flow reduction in storm surges. Mangrove forest shall be managed. Then effective weather monitoring. Cyclones can be predicted several days before itself. So it is effective that the weather monitoring should be done so that we can minimize the effect of the cyclone if at all it has been told earlier to the people living in that locality to relocate. Then land use control. Land use should be such that minimum critical activities should be carried out in such vulnerable areas. Building should be water and wind resistant. Retrofitting of the older building should be made mandatory. There should be maintenance of river embankments. Communication lines should be drawn underground. Then construction of strong halls in vulnerable areas should be made. Coastal regulation zone norms, there should be strictly enforced such areas during these time of during cyclone hours. No one should allow to move towards the coastal areas. Insurance cover, comprehensive state insurance cover needs to be provided for person, their properties, and for their cattle, livestock, etc. Then preparedness. Coastal areas should have adequate preparedness to fight against or to resist against these cyclones. So right, resist against these cyclones like by building disaster resistant buildings, shelter houses, etc. Awareness must be created about the impacts of the cyclone and how to reduce the impact of the cyclone, and what are the activities that can be carried out during a cyclone time. And the activities are required to increase public awareness of storm surge, flooding, and rainfall related to the cyclone. So these are the mitigation and management practices that can be employed during the cyclone. So this was all about today's session. I hope you understood whatever was taught in this session. I hope you understood whatever was taught in this session, and thank you and have a nice day.